At 17 years old, he had no home, no money, and no one to call his own. While other teenagers were busy planning for college, dreaming about parties, and mapping out their future careers, he was just planning where he would sleep that night. Some nights, it was a cold, hard park bench. Other nights, it was under a bridge, the sound of cars overhead a constant, lonely hum. And on the coldest nights, he'd find an abandoned building, where the winter wind cut through broken walls like knives. People passed him every day on the street. Most looked away, pretending he didn't exist. Some stared, their eyes filled with judgment. But no one, not a single person, could have imagined that this forgotten, homeless teenager would one day become a tech millionaire. Honestly, not even he could have imagined it. His childhood was a story of a broken household. It was a place filled with violence, addiction, and constant instability. By the time he was 15, he had already learned a lesson that most kids thankfully never have to. Life is not fair. So, at 17, after one final, explosive fight at home, he walked out. He left with nothing but a backpack on his shoulders and a phone with a dead battery. He had no job, no real education to speak of, and absolutely no support system. All he had was fear. That first night on the street was the worst he'd ever experienced. It was brutally cold, deafeningly silent, and the loneliness was a physical weight on his chest. He didn't sleep a single minute. Instead, he just watched the warm, inviting lights from nearby apartment windows. He wondered, how do people live such normal lives? Well, I'm out here, completely alone. It was in that moment of despair that he made a quiet, desperate promise to himself. I will not stay here forever. He had no idea how he would escape. Not a clue. But he decided, right then and there, that he would try. One cold afternoon, while he was trying to warm his frozen hands outside a public library, he noticed people inside, sitting comfortably, using the computers. He walked in, and the blast of warmth felt like heaven. But inside that building, he found something even more powerful than heat. He found the internet. At first, he used it like anyone in his position would to apply for jobs. He sent out countless applications, but most never replied. Then one day, he randomly clicked on a video about coding, his screen filled with strange symbols, commands, and lines of logic. At first, it made absolutely no sense to him. But as he watched, something inside him lit up. This creates things, he whispered to himself. A small spark of fascination had been ignited. So he kept coming back to the library every single day. It became his sanctuary. He didn't have any money for expensive courses or boot camps, so he learned everything from free YouTube videos, free blogs, and free online forums. While other teens his age were playing video games and hanging out with friends, he was hunched over a borrowed computer, typing line after line of code. When the library finally closed for the day, he'd have to go back to the streets. During the day, he was a dedicated student. At night, he was homeless. Weeks slowly turned into months. He failed over and over again. His programs crashed. The websites he tried to build didn't load. Errors popped up everywhere. Some days, the gnawing hunger in his stomach made it almost impossible to focus. Some nights, the biting cold made it impossible to sleep. Then, one night, sitting all alone in the pouring rain under a bridge, he finally broke. He cried. These weren't quiet, silent tears. They were loud, gut-wrenching sobs of pure desperation. He whispered into the rain, "Why am I even trying? I'm nobody. I'm nothing." For the very first time since he started, he was on the verge of quitting. But then, as he sat there shivering, he realized something both heartbreaking and incredibly powerful at the same time. No one was coming to save him. No hero was going to swoop in and fix his life. If he quit now, this miserable life on the streets would be his forever. So the next morning, with his clothes still wet, his stomach completely empty, and his spirit feeling utterly broken, he walked back to the library. He sat down at a computer, and he started typing again. At 18 years old, after nearly a full year of relentless self-teaching, he built his very first simple website. It was slow, it was basic, honestly, it was pretty ugly, but it worked. He gathered up all his courage and showed it to a man who owned a small cafe nearby, who had mentioned needing a website for his business. The man laughed at first, skeptical, but then he tested it. 2 days later, he paid him $150. It was the first money he had ever made using his mind, and that $150 felt bigger, more significant, than $1 million ever could. For the first time in his entire life, he realized something truly life-changing. Skills can rewrite your destiny. Your circumstances don't have to be your future. He used that money to stay in a cheap shelter for a few nights, bought himself some real food, saved every penny he could, and then worked even harder. He kept freelancing, taking any job he could get. Small jobs, low pay. Sometimes he had difficult, demanding clients, but he never, ever stopped learning. He studied how apps were built. He studied software architecture. He studied business and marketing. At 20 years old, using a second-hand laptop he bought, he launched his own small tech service. By 21, he was successful enough to hire his first freelancer to help with the workload. By 22, his app had reached 50,000 users. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something. Then, at 24, a large, established tech company noticed his startup. They saw the potential in what he had built from nothing. They made him an offer to buy his company. At first, he was sure it was a joke or a prank, but it wasn't. The deal closed for $3.4 million. The boy who once slept on park benches now owned a beautiful home with glass walls and stunning ocean views. But the strangest part of it all, the money didn't really change him. The struggle did. Today, he uses his resources to fund scholarships for homeless youth, giving them the chance he never had. He builds free coding programs for kids in underserved communities who feel forgotten by the world. And every single year, he goes back to visit that same public library, not as a homeless teenager looking for warmth, but as living proof. The story isn't just about him, it's about you. If a homeless teenager with no education, no family support, no money, and no connections can become a tech millionaire, then your excuse, whatever it is, has no power. Your past does not define you. Your pain can be the very thing that builds you. Your struggle can become the fuel for your future. Never, ever forget this. You are not behind in life. You are being prepared, and your breakthrough is so much closer than you think. Thanks for watching. Remember to follow for more stories that inspire.